Hello and welcome to this week's Preps Preview. Alongside Scott Richey, I'm Aren Dow. A lot of really good basketball kind of a couple weeks after the holiday tournaments. One real big game already happened, one game about to happen. But let's start with the St. T. Warrensburg-Latham game, round two. There's now split. Warrensburg won the first one, St. T. won the second one. I know you saw the first one. What did you kind of see of those two teams? How did they match up so far?
Well, the first game, it was in the Macon County tournament, and Warrensburg showed that a team can go box on one on Christian Williams and kind of throw St. Teresa off of its game. You put your defensive focus on Christian, and you make the other four guys on the court beat you. That didn't happen for St. Teresa in that first game, and Austin Tucker's three-point barrage really killed the Bulldogs. And then they tried similar things in this OCA conference matchup, and St. Teresa got some more production from those other four, whoever's out there at the same time as Christian. And obviously, Christian, I think he had about the same amount of points, rebounds, both games, about 18 points or so. And it's just a matter of who's going to kind of maybe step up a little bit if teams are going to try and take Christian out of the game, which Warrensburg was definitely able to do the first time around, especially in the second half, and obviously not nearly as much the second time. Yeah,
talking about Austin Tucker kind of going off, that's what they didn't have in this game. I mean, the three-point shooting wasn't real good for Warrensburg. I think they were 2 for 13. Austin Harden had both of them. So maybe, I don't know if that's what Warrensburg really needs to kind of stay with St. Teresa's, to be able to hit that outside shot. But like you said, I think John Radley has really come on this year, and St. Teresa's had a lot of role players around Christian that have been a whole lot better as the season's gone on. So I think, like Jordan Lekite's had double digits, and Madison Velchek hit a bunch of threes. So that definitely helps as well for St. Teresa. But wasn't Nodelman, got injured right before the half, I think, and that does hurt Warrensburg quite a bit. I mean, he's one of their, I think Garrett Shea and Nodelman are kind of switch scoring duties every once in a while. So that hurt them a little bit. But it's interesting to see how evenly these teams are matched up through two. And we'll probably have a couple more matchups still left to play in the rest of the season.
Yeah, and without Nodelman, even if it's not his game to score, which I think kind of Warrensburg goes, they might draw straws in the locker room beforehand to see who's going to be leading scorer. He does some little things that they are going to miss for the 2-3 weeks that he's out. He's a pretty good rebounder. He's kind of a lanky forward type that long arms can pull down those boards, and they'll be without that while he recovers from his elbow injury. And it'd be interesting to see if Garrett Shea can kind of handle things in the post by himself.
The game coming up that's probably the biggest game in 3A all year is going to be Lanphier-Lincoln. Both teams are undefeated. 1-2. I think Lanphier is number 1. Lincoln's number 2 in 3A right now. Going to be a really good matchup. I know there's a lot of history in Central State 8, and they'll see each other multiple times too, kind of like St. T. Warrensburg being in the same conference. Lincoln, I don't know what kind of the breaking point is, because both teams have played really well their way all year and haven't really had a whole lot of trouble at all this year.
And both teams have beaten good competition from the get-go. It's not like they've run out to these undefeated records by playing down. I mean, they play. I mean, Lincoln has wins against Cahokia, Champaign Centennial, Chicago Harlan, and that was all in the first week of the season. And Lanphier, has just racked up win after win, against similar type competition, and it should be interesting to kind of see how Lanphier, which is a Larry Austin, Xavier Bishop duo kind of team, matches up against a Lincoln team where anyone can be the leading scorer, and they're going to run Neil Alexander's offense and defense perfectly.
Yeah, one thing I saw from Lanphier last year, Xavier Bishop, who was, I think it was his first game as a freshman ever, you could see the athleticism, you could see the wheels turning, but I think being such a new person in that offense, I mean, a lot of it was how can I score, and I think he's kind of moved that to playing within the team a little bit. Ryan Mahan from over the SJR said that Larry Austin, he keeps hearing that Larry Austin has played better, has better leadership than he's ever seen before, so I think that's a big thing for Lanphier. But Lincoln, what they're able to do and just be able to get those three-point shots and you have the inside presence that Lincoln has. I really feel like they don't have a weakness, and so it'll be interesting to see how those teams match up and how they kind of attack each other to exploit that a little bit.
An interesting note: Lincoln coach Ian Alexander, if the Railers do win on Friday, it'll be his 700th career victory, and it'll be at the same gym they play at Lanphier where he won number 600. So it's just a little tidbit for you out there.
So we got kind of almost halfway point in the season, maybe a little bit past now, but. Scott, is there any team that you think is kind of maybe coming into their own or really hitting their stride kind of after the Christmas tournament second half of the season?
I mean, the team that comes to mind for me is MacArthur. They lost their first game at the Collinsville Holiday Tournament, and then came back and won 3 straight, took the consolation title. And if you think back 2 years ago, they kind of ran through a similar stretch, and even last year was fairly similar, where the first part of the season, they did okay, and then struggled in the Big 12 at the start, and then around Christmas time, the new year, they kind of got things going with 3 wins in a row now, and we'll be playing Eisenhower, kind of as we film this, so to speak.
Right.
But a win against them would be a 4-game winning streak, and I think maybe they finally kind of figured out how to win some games. They lost some close ones, especially in the Big 12 so far. If they can, kind of prove that they can win those close games, play, a little better defense. I know, Coach Fleet Phillips, would like to see that with, a team that's not been too bad offensively, really. Right. I think that would be, key for, kind of putting together a run like they did a couple of years ago where they won a regional title.
For me, this team has been pretty good all year, but Newton, the schedule the first part of the season, wasn't that tough. I mean, I think they've only had 1 loss so far. But whoever they played recently, they won the Dietrich Holiday tournament. They just had 2 really big wins against Effingham St. Anthony, who's been a surprisingly good team this year, kind of, with a lot of new players. And then you have a Casey win against Casey Westfield, I think a 2-point win, where they had some late baskets, that they had some late had a couple late through those that maybe didn't go, but they were able to still get the win against Casey Westfield, which is one of the top teams and one of the teams in their regional as well, which Newton, going into that regional, they have T-Town and Casey Westfield in that regional, so they'll need everything they can get. But, Luke Stone's been playing really well. Brock Mimoser has a really good outside shot that I think Newton, the way that they won the tournament in these last couple of wins, that solidified them as a real contender of a team. And you didn't really know kind of early on, what kind of team they were. They were winning big, but to win against a team like Casey and to do it, in the fourth quarter or it's late, I think that says a lot for Newton.
Yeah, and I will have a little bit more to say about Newton a little later.
Well, let's get into our top 5.
Okay.
How about right now?
My top 5, it went a lot easier for me this time. The last time I did a top 5, I actually had 3 teams kind of splitting the number 5 spot because I couldn't really decide, who I thought deserved to be in there. This one, it came to me, I guess. At number 5, I have Arthur Lovington. Only have 1 loss. It was by 3 points to St. Teresa, and they have beaten who they've needed to beat. I'm just kind of looking for them. They need a big win. I mean, they don't really have like that signature win. You can say this kind of made our season, but still, a really good team so far. And number 4 is Newton. They were, playing really well, early in the season, beating teams by a lot. But they've done that the last few years and then kind of tailed off once the new year started. And a lot of times, their stumbling block was a Casey game. And they won that this time. And I just think that, maybe this is the year where, they, don't turn a really strong start into kind of a mediocre, finish to a season, and just beating Casey like they did, beating St. Anthony, who's much better than I originally gave them credit for. Those are the kind of wins that kind of make me say, okay, Newton, that's what I've kind of expected you to do the last few seasons. It's nice to see you doing it now. At 3, I have Teutopolis, a team I think they've taken a couple lumps, lost to Casey. Lost a game to Highland recently, a 3A team. But it's just a team that, they play, fundamentally sound basketball, and they will continue, I think, to get better as the season progresses, just because they don't have a lot of starters back from last year's team. So I think as kind of they get still kind of trying to figure out what their roles are with each other, that by the postseason they'll kind of be that T-Town team we expect. At 2, I have St. Teresa. If it's not for my number 1, Lincoln, I think St. T could be in that spot. I think there's still more that Christian Williams can give. I mean, he's a junior, so he's got another year to do that. But it's just, I think if he kind of figures out that he is the best player on the court 98% of the time, he could turn into really a dominant player for St. Teresa. But Lincoln is going to be my number 1. I think they've been my number 1 all year, and they continue to win and prove why they're in that spot. It'll be interesting to see if they can beat Lanphier on Friday. I mean, that's going to be maybe best game in the state at this point in the season.
Well, my top 5 are all the same teams, although I do have quite a few that are switched around. I have Newton at 5 right now, and Arthur Lovington at 4. Arthur Lovington, both teams won their holiday tournaments, and I think for Arthur, their biggest win I think it probably is that Meridian game. They won by 6. But for the most part, like you said, I mean they haven't had a big win. But Curtis Plank has been playing outstanding at the points, and it's pretty helpful to have someone with his experience who's been playing for a couple of years, and he's really running that offense well. But it'll be interesting to see kind of once they get into conference play a little bit how they play against a team like Cerro Gordo. I think if they can get wins like that, that'll give them a little bit more momentum and a little more, hey, we can play these big teams. And I think the St. T game, losing by 3, that's still pretty solid though. For my 3 and 2, I had those switches as well. St. Teresa at number 3 and T-Town at number 2. St. T, they've had some big wins lately, and they got the Warrensburg win, which I think is kind of nice that they get that back after losing that first one. You don't want to give too much momentum to the other team, but I think Teutopolis really has so many different pieces. Reed Hardick, and he's been really playing well lately. Has a good outside shots, and you have just so many role players at Teutopolis that really know what they're supposed to do. People like Bobby Wenthy who they know they're not the leading scorer, but they'll go and get a rebound. And Teutopolis always has players like that, and when you put all those players around who can shoot from the outside and kind of slash inside and have Brett Meddy in the middle, I really feel like Teutopolis has a real good chance of going deep. And then obviously Lincoln at number 1, like you said, number 1 all year. And even if they don't play, I think it'll be really surprising to see either team have a double-digit win between Lanphier and Lincoln. I think it'll be more interesting just to see how each team plays each other. I can't imagine that they'll change too many things because that's what's gotten to this point already. But it'll be interesting to see if Lincoln can really keep what they want to do and really slow down and really play possession basketball against a team like Lanphier. If they can do that, that'll say a lot that they can play their game the way they want to against a team like Lanphier. So we'll see how that goes this week, and if Lanphier and Lincoln, how that all shapes up. But we do have Preps Pick'em continuing to go on. Check that out. That's every Friday and Saturday games. We'll be going out to games all week, and so make sure you check that at hrpreps.com, and we'll see.